The belt cracked against my skin, a sharp sting that echoed the betrayal in my children's eyes. I stood in the dim light of the barn, my hands raised not in defense, but in surrender, as my son, Ethan, and daughter, Lila, took turns wielding the leather strap they'd found among my old tools. At 60, I thought I'd seen every shade of human cruelty. But nothing prepared me for this, my own flesh and blood, driven by greed for 100 acres of land, turning on me with a ferocity I'd never imagined. What drives a child to raise a hand against their father? Was it the promise of wealth? The sprawling fields of wheat and corn that had been in our family for 3 generations? Or had something deeper, something I'd missed, festered in their hearts over the years? The barn smelled of hay and dust, the air thick with the weight of their accusations. "You're selfish, Dad," Ethan shouted, his voice breaking with rage. At 35, he was broad-shouldered, his face hardened by years of working the land beside me. "You're hoarding it all, keeping us trapped here." Lila, younger by 5 years, stood beside him, her eyes glistening with tears, but her grip on the belt unwavering. "We deserve that land," she said, her voice low, almost a hiss. "You've had your time." I didn't fight back. Not because I couldn't, my hands were still strong, my back still straight from decades of labor, but because I wanted to understand. What had I done to make them believe this was their only path? Had I been too hard, too distant, too focused on preserving the legacy of those 100 acres? The land was more than dirt and crops. It was my father's dream, my grandfather's sweat, the heartbeat of our family. I'd always planned to pass it to Ethan and Lila, but not like this, not torn from me by force. As the belt struck again, I closed my eyes, not against the pain, but to search my memories. Where had I gone wrong? When had my lessons about hard work and loyalty twisted into their hunger for control? Ethan's voice trembled as he swung again. "Sign it over, Dad. Don't make this harder." His words were a plea wrapped in anger. And I wondered, was he trying to convince me or himself? Lila's strikes were softer, but no less deliberate. Each one a silent demand for the deed I'd refused to hand over without a plan for their future. They wanted it all now. No conditions. No trust. I'd raised them to be strong, to stand up for what they believed in. But had I taught them to value the wrong things? The land was worth millions. Yes, but its true value lay in the stories it held, the late nights I'd spent teaching Ethan to drive the tractor, the mornings Lila and I walked the fields, dreaming of her future. Had I failed to show them that? The beating stopped as abruptly as it began. Ethan dropped the belt, his chest heaving, his face pale. Lila sank to her knees, sobbing. "Why won't you just give it to us?" she whispered. I looked at them, my children, and saw strangers. But I also saw fear of a future they couldn't control. Fear that I'd never let them have what they thought they deserved. What would you do if your own children turned against you? Would you fight back? Or would you search for the root of their pain, even as it tore you apart? I wiped the blood from my lip and straightened, my voice steady. "You want the land. Take it. But you'll have to live with what you've done." They froze, their eyes wide, as if my words had struck harder than their blows. I walked out of the barn, the weight of their betrayal heavier than the bruises on my skin. But as I stepped into the cool night air, a plan began to form, a plan not for revenge, but for redemption. Could I show them what they'd lost? Not just in me, but in themselves. The stars above the fields glittered, indifferent to our drama. I thought of the land, the 100 acres that had shaped us all. It wasn't just property. It was a test. And I would make sure Ethan and Lila faced it. Not with belts or threats, but with the truth of who they'd become. What kind of legacy would they leave if they started with violence? What kind of people would they be if they won this way? I walked toward the house, my steps slow but purposeful. They thought they'd broken me, but they didn't know the strength of a father's love or the lengths I'd go to save them from themselves. How far would you go to teach someone a lesson they'd never forget? And what would it cost you to do it? The kitchen was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, a stark contrast to the chaos of the barn. I sat at the worn oak table, a $1 bill in my hand, its edges frayed like my trust in Ethan and Lila. Outside, the fields stretched endlessly, whispering memories of better days when my children's laughter filled this house, not their rage. Why does betrayal cut deeper when it comes from those you love most? What makes a child turn on the one who gave them everything? I stared at the dollar, a symbol of my plan, turning it over in my fingers as I pieced together what to do next. Ethan and Lila hadn't followed me. I pictured them in the barn, grappling with what they'd done. Did they feel triumph? Or was guilt already creeping in? I wanted to believe the latter, but the sting of the belt told me otherwise. They'd crossed a line, and I couldn't unsee the hatred in their eyes. But I also couldn't abandon them, not yet. I called my lawyer, Margaret, her voice a steady anchor in the storm. "James, what's wrong?" she asked, sensing the weight in my silence. I told her everything, not just the beating, but the years leading up to it, the arguments over the land, Ethan's impatience, Lila's quiet ambition turning to resentment. Why had I ignored the signs? Had I been too stubborn, too set on my vision for the land? Margaret listened, then said, "You have options, James. But you need to decide what you want for them, for the land, for yourself. What would you want if you were me? Revenge, justice, or something more?" I didn't want to destroy my children, but I couldn't let their actions go unanswered. The land was theirs by right, but not like this. I told Margaret my idea. I'd sign over the one for 100 acres, but with a catch. The deed would transfer to them for $1 symbolic. Yes, but also a legal maneuver. The land would come with a trust, one that locked its sale or development for 10 years. They'd have to work it, live on it, prove they could honor its legacy. If they failed, it would revert to a conservation trust, untouchable forever. Could they rise to that challenge? Or would their greed blind them? Margaret drafted the papers, her efficiency a small comfort. "This will shake them, James," she said. "They'll get what they want, but not the way they expect." I nodded, picturing their faces when they realized the land wasn't a quick payday. What would you do if you got everything you wanted, only to find it came with strings you couldn't cut? The next morning, I found Ethan and Lila in the kitchen, their faces pale, eyes avoiding mine. The belt lay on the counter, a silent accusation. "We're sorry, Dad," Lila whispered, her voice breaking. Ethan nodded, but his jaw was tight, his apology grudging. Did they mean it? Or was this just fear of consequences? I slid the dollar bill across the table. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" I said, my voice calm but sharp. "The land's yours. For this." Their eyes widened, confusion replacing guilt. "But there's a catch," I continued, handing them the trust documents. "Read it, live by it, or lose it all." Ethan's hands shook as he read, his face darkening. 10 years. He muttered. "We can't sell it. Can't develop it." Lila's eyes scanned the pages, her lips parting in shock. "Dad, this isn't fair," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Why did they think fairness was owed to them after what they'd done? I stood, my bruises throbbing but my resolve stronger. "You wanted the land. Now earn it." I walked out, leaving them with the papers and their panic. The dollar bill sat on the table, a small but heavy reminder of their choice. What happens when you get what you want, but it's not what you expected? Would they fight the terms? Or would they finally see what the land Anna meant to them? The fields glowed golden under the midday sun, but the beauty felt hollow as I watched Ethan and Lila from the porch. They stood by the barn, arguing over the trust documents, their voices sharp enough to carry across the yard. I wondered, did they see the land as I died a living, breathing legacy or just a dollar sign? What makes someone cling to greed when love is still within reach? How do you rebuild trust when it's been shattered by violence? I sipped my coffee, the bitterness mirroring my thoughts, and waited for their next move. Ethan stormed toward the house, Lila trailing behind. "This is a trick, Dad," he said, slamming the papers on the porch railing. "You're punishing us." His eyes, so like his mother's, burned with accusation. Lila crossed her arms, her silence louder than his words. Was she doubting him? Or me? "It's not a trick," I said, meeting his gaze. "It's a chance. Work the land. Prove you're worthy of it." Ethan scoffed, but Lila's eyes flickered with something soft regret. Maybe. Could they still be reached? Or had I lost them to their own ambitions? I remembered teaching Ethan to plant his first row of corn, his small hands clumsy but eager. Lila used to run through the fields, her laughter brighter than the sun. Where had those children gone? Had I pushed them too hard to love the land? Or not hard enough to love me? Ethan tore the papers in half, his face red. "We'll fight this," he said. "We'll take you to court." Lila gasped, grabbing his arm. "Ethan, stop," she whispered, but he shook her off. I felt a pang not of fear, but of sadness. What would you do if your child declared war on you? Would you fight back? Or let them learn the hard way? I nodded, calm despite the threat. Do what you must. But the land stays in the trust until you prove yourselves. I turned away, my heart heavy, but my steps firm. They didn't follow, and I didn't look back. The fields whispered their approval, as if they knew what I was doing. That night, I found Lila on the porch, her eyes red from crying. "I didn't want it to be like this," she said. "Ethan, he's so angry. But I'm sorry. Dad, I am." Her words were a lifeline, fragile but real. Did she mean it? Or was this another ploy? How do you trust someone who's hurt you so deeply? I sat beside her, the silence heavy. "Why, Lila?" I asked. "Why the belt? Why now?" She looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "We thought you'd never let go. We thought we had to make you." Her words stung, but they also revealed a truth. They'd felt trapped, just as I had in that barn. What would you say to a child who hurt you out of desperation? I took her hand, my voice soft. "The land's yours if you earn it. But you have to earn me back, too." She nodded, tears falling. And for the first time, I saw a glimmer of the girl I'd raised. Could she change? Or was this just a moment before the storm? Ethan's shadow loomed in the doorway, his face unreadable. "We're going to a lawyer tomorrow," he said, his voice cold. Lila flinched, but I just nodded. The battle was coming, and I was ready not to destroy them, but to save them. What kind of father lets his children fall without giving them a chance to rise? The courtroom was a sterile cage, its wooden benches polished but unforgiving. I sat alone, the dollar bill tucked in my pocket, a quiet reminder of why I was here. Ethan and Lila sat across the aisle, their lawyer whispering strategies, their faces a mix of defiance and unease. What does justice look like when it's your own children on the other side? Do you fight to win, or to teach? I adjusted my tie, my bruises hidden but still aching, and waited for the judge to call us forward. Their lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named Carter, painted me as a tyrant, hoarding the land to control my children. "James Harper has manipulated his children's future," he said, his voice smooth and cutting. "He's using this trust to punish them for wanting what's rightfully theirs." Ethan nodded, but Lila looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. Did she believe Carter's words? Or was she starting to see through her own anger? My lawyer, Margaret, stood, her voice steady. James Harper was assaulted by his own children for refusing to hand over his life's work without conditions. This trust ensures the land's legacy, not its exploitation. She presented photos of my bruises, the belt, the torn deed. The courtroom gasped, and Lila's face crumpled. Why hadn't she stopped Ethan that night? What held her back? The judge, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, leaned forward. Mr. Harper, why not just give them the land outright? She asked. I stood, my voice calm but firm. Because it's not just land. It's a responsibility. I want them to earn it, not destroy either themselves. The judge nodded, her expression unreadable. What would you say if you had to defend your heart's work to a stranger? Ethan took the stand, his voice loud but shaky. He's always controlled us, he said. He never trusted us with the land. His words stung, but they also revealed his blindness. Had I been too controlling? Or had he never understood the weight of legacy? Lila's testimony was quieter, her voice breaking. I just wanted a future, she said. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Her eyes met mine, and I saw regret, but was it enough? Margaret called me next. I told the truth, the beating, the betrayal, but also my love for them. I want them to have the land, I said, but not at the cost of their souls. The courtroom fell silent, and I felt the weight of every eye on me. What would you feel, standing before your children, exposing their worst moment to the world? The judge adjourned for deliberation, and I stepped outside, the air cool against my skin. Lila approached, her steps hesitant. Dad, I didn't want this, she whispered. I'll work the land. I'll prove it. Ethan stood back, his arms crossed, watching us. Could I trust her promise? Or was it just another step in their game? I handed her the dollar bill. Start with this, I said. Show me you mean it. She took it, her fingers trembling, and for a moment, I saw my little girl again. But Ethan's glare reminded me the fight wasn't over. What happens when one child seeks redemption, but the other seeks war? How do you save them both without losing yourself? The judge's gavel struck, a sound that echoed like a heartbeat in the quiet courtroom. The trust stands, she declared, her voice firm. The land transfers to Ethan and Lila Harper for $1, under the conditions outlined. Ethan's face flushed red, his fists clenched, while Lila exhaled, her shoulders slumping in relief or defeat. What does victory feel like when it's bittersweet? When you've won the battle but the war is in your children's hearts. I clutched the dollar bill, now back in my pocket, and watched my children process their new reality. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the courthouse steps. Ethan stormed past me, his lawyer trailing behind, muttering about appeals. Lila lingered, her eyes searching mine. I'll do it, Dad, she said. I'll work the land. I'll make it right. Her voice was earnest, but doubt gnawed at me. Could she change? Or was this just a moment of weakness? I nodded, my throat tight. Then start tomorrow. The fields don't wait. She gave a small smile, the first I'd seen in months, and walked away. Ethan's car sped off, leaving dust in its wake. Why was he so determined to fight? What drove him to reject the chance I'd given them? Back home, I walked the fields alone, the wheat swaying in the evening breeze. Memories flooded back Ethan's first harvest, Lila's pride when she sold her first bushel at market. Had I been too focused on the land, neglecting the seeds of resentment I'd sown in them? What would you do if you realized your greatest gift to your children might have been their curse? The next morning, Lila showed up at dawn, her boots muddy, her face set with determination. She started weeding, her hands clumsy but willing. I watched from a distance, my heart caught between pride and caution. Ethan was nowhere to be seen. Had he given up, or was he planning something worse? Days turned into weeks, and Lila threw herself into the work. She learned the tractor, repaired fences, asked questions about crop rotation. I want to understand, Dad, she said one evening, her hands blistered. I want to make you proud. Her words warmed me, but Ethan's absence loomed. Where was he? What was he plotting? I called Margaret, my voice low. Ethan's not here. I'm worried he's not done fighting. She sighed. He's hired a new lawyer. James. They're challenging the trust's legality. My stomach sank. Why couldn't he see the land as a gift, not a prize? What would you do if one child embraced redemption while the other ran toward ruin? Lila overheard, her face paling. I'll talk to him, she said. He's my brother. I can reach him. I wanted to believe her, but Ethan's anger felt like a storm I couldn't stop. Could Lila bridge the gap, or would she be swept away by his rage? I handed her the keys to the truck. Be careful, I said. He's not the boy we knew. She drove off, and I stood in the fields, the dollar bill heavy in my pocket. The land was theirs now, but its true test was just beginning. What happens when one child fights for forgiveness and the other for control? And how do you hold on to hope when the outcome is out of your hands? The fields were quiet, but my heart thundered as I waited for Lila to return. She'd gone to find Ethan, to talk him down from his warpath. The dollar bill sat on the kitchen table now, a small but heavy reminder of the trust and the cost of their choices. What do you do when one child seeks redemption, but the other seeks destruction? How do you hold a family together when it's tearing itself apart? I paced the porch, the evening air cool against my skin, and prayed Lila could reach him. She returned at dusk, her face drawn, her eyes red. He's not listening. Dad, she said, her voice breaking. He's obsessed with selling the land. He thinks we can break the trust. I saw fear in her eyes, but also resolve. Had she found strength in the fields? Or was this just desperation? I told him I'm staying. She added, I'm working the land. With you. I hugged her, my heart aching with pride and sorrow. You're doing right, Lila, I said. But Ethan, I trailed off, unsure how to finish. What would you say to a son who's chosen greed over family? How do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? The next day, a letter arrived from Ethan's new lawyer, demanding a meeting. They claimed the trust was coercive, that I'd manipulated the transfer to punish them. I laughed, bitter and hollow. Punish them? I'd given them everything, wrapped in a chance to grow. Why couldn't Ethan see that? Lila and I worked side by side in the fields, planting the fall crop. Her hands were steadier now, her questions sharper. Why did you make it so hard, Dad? She asked one afternoon, wiping sweat from her brow. The trust. The 10 years, why not just give it to us? I paused, the weight of her question heavy. Had I been too rigid? Or was this the only way to teach them? It's not about making it hard, I said. It's about making it mean something. The land's not just money, it's us. Our family. If you sell it, you sell our story. She nodded, her eyes distant. Did she understand? Or was she just trying to please me? Ethan's lawyer called, demanding I sign a new deed without restrictions. I refused, and he promised to fight. You'll lose everything, he said. I hung up, my hands shaking. Lose everything. I'd already lost my son's trust. What more could they take? Lila overheard, her face pale. I'll testify for you, Dad, she said. I'll tell the court I want the trust. Her words were a lifeline, but Ethan's absence gnawed at me. Could Lila's change of heart sway him? Or was he too far gone? I nodded, my throat tight. Thank you, Lila. But be ready, it's going to get ugly. The next court date loomed, and I felt the weight of the land, the dollar, the years I'd poured into Ethan and Lila. What would you do if you had to face your child in court, knowing the outcome could break them or you? I looked at Lila, working the fields with a determination I hadn't seen before, and I held on to hope. But Ethan's shadow lingered, a storm waiting to break. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension as the judge called us forward. I stood beside Margaret, the dollar bill in my pocket, while Ethan and his lawyer faced us, their eyes cold. Lila sat behind me, her presence a quiet strength. This was a moment that would define our family's future. What do you hold on to when everything you love is at stake? How do you face a child who's chosen to fight you, knowing you're fighting for them? I straightened, ready to face whatever came. Ethan's lawyer presented their case. The trust was unfair, a manipulation to control their inheritance. James Harper is punishing his children for wanting their due, he said, his voice slick. Ethan nodded, but his eyes flickered to Lila, who stared back, unwavering. Was he doubting himself? Or was that just my hope? Margaret countered, her voice clear. James Harper was attacked by his children for protecting a legacy. The trust ensures they earn it, not exploit it. She called Lila to the stand. My daughter stood, her voice steady but emotional. I was wrong, she said. I hurt my father, but I'm working the land now. I see what it means. I want the trust to stand. The courtroom murmured, and Ethan's face paled. Had Lila's words reached him, or was he too far gone? I took the stand, my voice calm but heavy. I love my children, I said. I gave them the land for $1 because I believe in them. But they have to believe in it, too. I looked at Ethan, willing him to understand. What would you say to a son who's lost his way, standing just feet away but feeling miles apart? The judge deliberated, her face unreadable. When she returned, her words were final. The trust remains. Ethan and Lila Harper must abide by its terms, or the land reverts to conservation. Ethan's shoulders slumped, his lawyer silent. Lila reached for my hand, tears in her eyes. Was this victory, or just the start of a longer road? Outside, Ethan approached, his face a mix of anger and defeat. You win, Dad, he said, his voice bitter. I shook my head. It's not about winning, Ethan. It's about what you do next. I handed him the dollar bill. Start over. Work the land with Lila. It's still yours. He stared at it, then at me, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor. Could he change? Or was this the end? Lila and I returned to the fields, planting side by side. Ethan showed up a week later, silent but willing, his hands clumsy on the plow. We worked together, the land forgiving where we couldn't yet be. What does forgiveness look like when it's built on pain? For us, it was $1. One, for 100 acres, and a family finding its way back, one seed at a time.